A very good morning to everyone. So today we are going to discuss about one of the very important things that happens in our day-to-day life, whether it's personal, professional, in society, or wherever you are. Whenever a group of persons come together, this thing happens. Can anyone guess what is that? The mismatch of arguments. The mismatch of views, arguments, proving yourself right. And yes, that is known as the conflict which happens in our day-to-day life. Now, conflicts are something which are naturally in the walk of our life. There cannot be a single person who in his or her entire life has never faced conflicts or was never a part of the conflict. There's a myth about conflict. It says that whenever a person is having conflict, he or she says that it's not conflict, the other person is not agreeing with me. But it is that not just the other person. If you say that other person is not agreeing, that's why the conflict happened between us. What about you? Did you agree to what the other person was saying? No. So conflict is something which involves two or more persons who are having views mismatch on some specific thing, the common topic, on some common topic. So it can be both of the parties want their suggestion or their perception to be accepted by the other party because both of them believe that whatever we are saying is right. So conflicts. Yes. So conflicts are naturally in the walk of life. They're at every place, both at workplace as well as home. Do you think that it happens only when we are into the organization or when we are at a workplace? No, it happens everywhere, every place, wherever there are more than two people discussing about common thing. Conflict can both be charming and maddening too. There are many sub-sources of conflicts, like conflict can occur when an individual or a group are not obtaining what they need or what they want and are seeking their own self-interest as the priority. They are not ready to accept what the other person asks them. They are not ready to accept their perception and they are not ready to compromise on their perception. At that stage, the conflict starts. Sometimes what happens, no, sometimes the individual is not aware about the need and outcome, about their want. So unconsciously, they start to enter into conflicts, though they are not aware that what exactly they want, what exactly they need. But still, unconsciously, they become the part of the conflict. Sometimes it is intentional. Both the parties know what they want from this discussion, what the outcome they are waiting for, and both of them actively work to achieve their goals, trying to convince the other party, and there the conflict start occurring. So in short, we can say that conflict is a process where perception leads to disruption of desire. We have our own perception, and due to which we are unable to accept the perception the other person is having, and this leads to disruption in the desired result, desired state of harmony and stability in an independent world. Because it is an independent world, we are free to do whatever we want to do. So from there, the conflict starts. Now we are going to discuss, we will be reading some quotations. Like what is conflict? If I tell you about conflict, do you think that the conflicts are always because of mismatch of views, or there can be any other reason also of happening the conflicts? According to you, what are the reasons? For me, many times it is not just because the mismatch of views or difference in the opinion. Many times it happens just because 90% people just raise their tone. The voice tone is not proper in discussion. And that is why the conflict starts happening. So it says that 10% of the conflict is due to difference in opinion and 90% is due to delivery and tone of voice. That's why we say that our tone, our words play a very important role. If we are not using our words, our tone properly, it can lead to conflict between group or between two individuals. Now, conflict is just because of the difference in opinion, but many times when we raise our voice, when we don't know what words we are using, due to that also conflict happen. And in most of the time, you will observe that the conflict is because the other person didn't like one word which was there in the conversation, which was there, which was spoken by the other party, and due to which he or she is not ready to accept his opinion. Right? So yes, that happens. 90% of the time, it is because of the delivery method or the tone of voice. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with. Conflicts are because of their needs, values, ideas that are seen to be different. Right. Right. It is absolutely right, Jyoti, that conflicts are because of their need, values, ideas that seems to be different. But most of the time, what happens? No, somehow we are able to relate our own ideas, needs with other person. But the tone that person is using, that doesn't allow us to cope up with that thing, doesn't allow us to accept what the other person is saying, and the conflict takes a very drastic role. Now, here one of the quotation says that peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace has nothing to do. Peace is not where the conflict is not there. It is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. You know, we should have the ability to cope up with that. If there is a conflict, we should know how we can solve that conflict, how we can bring things back to normal, how we can adopt the changes, how we can match our own needs, desire with the other person need, desire and goal, that we should know. Yes. Conflict cannot survive without your participation. The myth which I told you. I didn't started this conflict. You know, I was not a person who initiated. The other person entered into conflict. Was he the only person who was discussing about his needs? Was he the only person who didn't agree to what he was saying? Or it was you also who didn't supported his views? It was you also who were not ready to accept his views, ideas, need, wants. So it cannot survive without participation, without your own participation. Same way, there are two hands, right? We cannot clap with one hand. Can we do the clapping with one hand? No, we need both the hands. Two hands coming together, and that's how we clap. Same way, two people coming together, and that is how conflicts survive. Without participation of two people, if you say only one people was speaking, there cannot be any conflict. If you are ready to accept what he or she is saying, the conflicts won't survive. It's because of you and the other person that the conflict survives. Now, what is conflict management? Someone is saying, yes, bingo, it's a good idea, we should go for it. And someone is saying, no, it's a bad idea, we cannot go for it. This up and down, you know, this up and down is the only reason of entering into conflict. For someone, it is best, for someone, it is worst. Same as market trend. You know, in market, many things come, but some things, some brands just capture the market because it's thumbs up for those brands. And some brands, though their product is good, the quality may be good, prices are affordable, but still they are unable to capture their market because people say it's bad. So it's just thumbs up and thumbs down, which is the only reason for the success, for the conflicts to happen, for achieving something, for deciding something, for taking group discussion, for argument. This is the only thing which happens. When there are going to be both thumbs up or there are going to be both thumbs down, conflicts will not survive. There will be no scope of conflicts. Yes, but I'll not say that conflicts should not happen. They are not good. Conflicts are good if they are taken into a healthy discussion, if they enter into healthy discussion, because conflicts gives a way to the person to think creatively, to combine things together, but that can only be done when both the parties are ready to compromise in the things which they are wanting. It's from both the end. One party cannot enter into win-win situation. When we talk about conflict management, when we talk about how to manage the conflict, it is all about winning and losing. It's for both the party. I, as an individual, will win on some points, will lose on some points. The other party, as an individual, will win on some points, will lose on some points. And when this happens, the winning and losing happens, when both the party goes into winning and losing mode, that is the time we are able to manage the conflict. Now, what is the definition of conflict? Yes, if we talk about the definition of conflict, it is an activity which takes place when individual or group wish to carry out mutually inconsistent act concerning their wants, needs, or obligation. Mutually they want to the other person. They are saying that, okay, mutually we are doing this thing, but they don't want to accept other person needs and wants and obligation. They just want to make them work, make them do whatever they themselves want to do. So it is the situation where the conflict enters. Conflict is a state of mind when you and someone else in contact with you, directly or indirectly, try to compete for achieving set objective. There's a competition. Someone else is also trying to do that, and the conflicts start evolving. So it is always between, see, in both the definition, you might have noticed one thing, that in both the things, there are two or group of people who are entering into conflict. It's not just one person. We are not talking about only one individual. We are talking about two people or more who are entering into conflicts, and that is the reason conflict happens. When one or more people try to work together, each having independent personality. Now, keep a note of this word, that each one is having an independent personality. A situation tends to rise. Now, when both of them are having independent personality, when both of them are wants to work together but have independent personality, there the situation rises when one's interest and expectation clashes with those of others. Understand this word very carefully, that independent personality, interest, and expectation clashes. They are not ready to attract. They are the opposite poles who are just moving apart. As soon as we are bringing the individual together, in between, there are so many other expectations from both the ends that they are unable to join and they are still being apart. So this space which you can see, the gap between the two ends which you can see, is the conflict, the entry of conflict. The conflict entered between them just because of the change in their interest, difference in their opinion, difference in their expectation. It is the interactive behavior at individual and organizational level which is conducive to the state of frustration and leads to emergence of conflict. When we become frustrated that why the other person is not accepting, why he is not ready to do what we are saying, at that stage the conflict emerges. Now conflict is not necessary between the individual. The conflict can happen within the organization, with the organization also. Okay, So it is all about the difference in the opinion, the difference in their interest, the difference the individual personalities are holding. When that comes together, conflict happens. That is why we say that leaders are the person, or managers are the person who hold good leadership quality. They are the one who know how to solve the conflict. They don't allow the conflict to enter into their team. They analyze that at very prior stage and they manage that. Yes. So other definition which we can talk about is an expressed struggle between at least two independent parties who perceive incompatible goals are not compatible, scarce resources, and interference from the other party in achieving the goal. Many times we have conflict with the boss also. Why? We have conflict with the leader because the leader might be adopting a transformational leadership which says that you will be just working the way I have given you the guidelines. So there the conflicts start happening because the followers are not ready to take everything into their mouth. Okay, they just want to bring out their own knowledge, their own creativity in achieving the goals and objective of the organization. So that place when leader doesn't allow this thing, conflicts start emerging. A process that begins when one party perceives that other party has negatively affected or about to affect something that the first party cares about. If you think that someone is has already harmed you or he's about to harm your work or your interest, then conflict happens. You start screaming on that person, you start shouting on that person, you stop talking to that person, you feel that the person is not at all trustworthy person. Conflicts majorly happens when there is lack of trust, when you don't give equal value to other person's interest and perception. You just want your perception to be accepted by all the individuals. So these are the reasons where the process of conflict starts and conflict start emerging. Now, what is the meaning of conflict? It is a process involving two or more parties or individual where one feels that the other party is depriving of his rightful gains. Now, the rightful gains, the gains which you should get, you're not getting that gains. The other person is just snatching, it's just taking away those things. That time again, the conflict start happening. It is a competition, a sort of competition between parties who perceives their action to meet goals and ideas to be incompatible. So it is all. Now we have read almost 5 different definitions. So what conclusion we came into is it is all about the difference in the ideas, difference in the opinion, their actions, and the competition which start evolving between two individual or a group of individuals, and that is how the conflict emerge. What's that? The anger, when we punch each other, the angry faces, the anger which we see, and that is conflict. That's why we see that 10% time the conflict is because of the genuine reason, the difference in the views and opinion of the person. But other times, it is because of the mismatch of the tone. It is because of the raised volume. It is because of the language used to convince. And that is the reason 90% of the time the conflict emerge. Now, if we talk about the characteristics of conflict, so it says that conflict is a process. It is inevitable. It is a normal part of life. Perception, opposition, independence, and interaction. Everyone is inflicted with conflict, and conflict is undimensional. Now we are going to discuss all these points in detail, the characteristics of conflict. Now, the first characteristic of conflict says that conflict is a process. Now, why it is a process? it occurs in layers. There are different, the conflict is started being bringing, it is shown in the way the others are speaking, discussion is going on, both are becoming hyper, and then finally they came to solution and conflict is settling down. So there are different stages of conflict. So conflict occurs in layers, different layers are there. First layer is always misunderstanding. When we are unable to explain ourselves clearly, or the other person is unable to understand clearly, the misunderstanding happens, and that is the first layer, the first step from where we are entering into the conflict mode. The other layers are difference in values, difference of viewpoint, difference of interest, and interpersonal differences. These all are the differences which brings two individuals enter into conflict. Conflict is inevitable. Conflict exists everywhere. Though when we talk about two different persons, they cannot be same. Their views, their values, their beliefs cannot be same. Even if we talk about a bond between mother and daughter, father and son, siblings, there also they are going to have mismatch of values, mismatch of beliefs. So no two person can be same. Hence, they may have different individual differences. And the difference may be because of values or otherwise lead to conflicts. The difference in values is the only reason which lead to conflict, which leads to arguments. Although inevitable, conflict can be minimized, diverted, or resolved. Yes, the best point is it can be minimized if timely action is being taken. It can be diverted, it can be resolved if both the parties are okay to compromise. Okay. Yeah, one more thing is that it can only be solved when both the parties are ready to compromise. If we say that one party is in the win situation and other party is completely losing in that situation, it cannot be resolved. Conflict is a normal part of life. As I told you, that individual groups, organization, everyone have to come across conflict with each passing day. If we talk about organization, every day there is going to be some or the other conflict arising between the individual, and that is a normal part of life. Individual groups or organizations have unlimited need and different values but limited resources. Now when we are entering into the organization, we have our own goals, our own values, our own desire, our own ethics, our own achievement, our own uh, opportunity, our own personality growth which we want to make. Same way organization is having its own goals, mission, vision, all these things. So matching both the things with the limited resources which we have, so again definitely conflict is going to arise. Thus, the incompatibility is bound to lead to conflict. So that incompatibility, when we are unable to match our goals with the organizational goals, when we are unable to match our own beliefs or perception with the individual or group of perception, there it leads to conflict. The conflict is not a problem, but it is the poorly managed, then it becomes problem. So conflict is arising. As I told you, conflict gives a room for new creation, new innovation, because different things are merged together, and when different best things merge together, they come up to be very good, very creative, very nice outcome. But if it is not managed properly, if the poor management is there, then it is going to be a big problem. Perception. In interpersonal interaction, perception is more important than reality. What we perceive, what we think, we believe that only. So it is more important than reality. And when we perceive and think affects our behavior, when that thing affects our behavior, attitude, and communication, perception, then again it lends to conflict. So it is all about the way we perceive things, the way it affects our behavior, our attitude, and our goal. Then that again conflict start arising. Opposition, strong opposition. We are not ready to compromise. We just want the way to be done in a way. But as I told you, the autocratic leaders, they are the person who just want everything to be done by them. They are only the person who take all types of decision. And this is the place where the conflicts start happening. One party to the conflict must be perceiving or doing something the other party does not like or want. Yes, obviously, both of them are doing something which is opposite. See, both the hands are in the opposite direction. Someone is speaking, one is listening. And when he is listening, he or she believes that it's not what I want, I like. It's again my beliefs, it's again my ethics. Again, they enter into conflict. Now, when we are talking about opposition, this can be stopped right there if we take timely action. If we understand, if as a leader, he or she understands the need of the individual, he or she understands the cultural background, the behavior which the individuals are holding. If he or she is able to guess that thing, if he or she is able to understand those things, then he can minimize the conflict, because he or she can set the rules which does not give benefit to only one individual. Only one party is not benefited. The rules, the things are the combination of all, everyone's desire, everyone's belief, everyone's ethics, and that way he or she can minimize the conflict. Independence and interaction, there must be some kind of real or perceived independence. Without independence, there can be no interaction, and conflict occurs only when some kind of interaction takes place. Now, if we talk about autocratic leadership, in that leadership, independence is not there, interaction is not there, everything is being decided by the leader. Leader tells everything to the followers and they are supposed to work accordingly. So in that type of leadership, the independence interaction is not there, so there is no room for conflict to enter. But when we talk about the open culture where there is no hierarchy, or the interaction, the communication goes from each and every management area, each and every different branches. At that place, when the interaction happens, the independence is there in doing the work. People are allowed to do the work they want to do. They have the decision making part. They have the responsibility along with the authority. At that point of time, when independence is there, the interaction will happen, and then there the conflict will occur, because the views mismatch is going to be there. For very simple example, if we want to conduct a college fest, if the management has given us the area, given us the place, it's good. But if the management has asked the faculties, sub senior level faculties, to come up with the suggestion of the area, conflict will be there. Someone will say that we should go with the open space, a garden. Someone will say that we should conduct it in a closed room or a place where we have open area as well as closed area. Someone will say that why don't we go far away from the city, and then we have our college fest this year. So this view mismatch, the suggestions which are coming, and the other party is not agreeing to accept what one is saying. So there the conflicts start arising. If there is one person, sole one person, individual who is going to take all the decision, the conflicts are not going to be there, because others are not allowed to think independently, to interact with other person. Everyone is inflicted with conflict. Conflict may occur within an individual, between two or more individual, group, or between organization. We as an individual also have to face the conflicts. Sometimes our heart wants to do something else, our mind is guiding us in other way. So there are two ways, two paths which we can see. Now it's conflict. We are fighting with ourselves only that what way to choose. Second, it can be between individual or group of individual, or it can be between group and the organization also. So it all depends upon how the views are mismatched and where it is taking place. conflict is not undimensional. It comes into different ways in accordance with degree or seriousness and capacity. So at time it may improve even a difficult situation. Now, how it can improve a difficult situation is when there is a conflict between two individuals, they can come up with something more creative, more nice, and yes, this will lead to a better understanding along with a creative solution for the problem, and the conflict will be solved. Both are going to be in win and win situation because both of their viewpoints are being taken together and we have finally come up with a new solution. So it can be sometimes very beneficial, very good for the organization also. So these are the characteristics which we have discussed. Conflict. Now it was all about the conflict, how conflict start, how it start emerging, and what are the characteristics, like what are the reason why we have conflicts, why the people have conflicts. So this is all for today's session. In case of any doubts, you can just drop a message or you can speak. If you don't have any doubt, then we are done with the session. Okay. Okay, so we are done with today's session. That was all about conflict. In conflict management, we have just discussed about what is conflict, the definition of conflict, and what are the characteristics of conflict. In next session, we will be discussing about the nature of conflict. Along with that, we will be discussing how conflict plays an important role and how can we manage the conflict. What is the process of conflict and what is how we are going to manage the conflict that we are going to discuss in the next session. That's all for today's session. Bye-bye. Take care.